Now, I all accept, and this is the reason why I in particular supported Councillor Ross's proposal that we look at a different way of splitting the burden of responsibility here, and I accept that. It's provided an opportunity for the community to further and in more depth discuss the issue of the interim transport levy, and I really value that opportunity. And Councillor Ross, you'll know, and all of you around the table will know, that I probably set up and attended 30 to 35 transport meets right across the city, and one of the main reasons why I did that was to give the people an opportunity to air their concerns or lack thereof on the ITL. And I got overwhelming silence in terms of whether or not they didn't like the ITL. So there was no dispute about that. And secondly, there was not a lot of dispute about whether or not there was a lack of equity in the ITL. And as I say, I have been all around the city. Some of you turned up to those transport meets, and thank you for being there. You would have found them interesting. But the most interesting thing around the ITL was there was a distinct lack of concern about it. People felt that we needed to sort transport out. So rather than for once being overly worried about the fact that, oh crikey, there's a cost to it, Aucklanders are now starting to genuinely focus on the fact that we need the fix. Now, the issue of the business, and this is what Councillor Ross is particularly focused on, and I can understand that. But I am saying that because of the interim nature of this feature, we could spend a lot of time mucking around the incidence and burden of rates within this. And look, you can shift it whichever way you like. And if you're looking to get a further saving to the residential ratepayers, this is the perfect way to do it. But I'm absolutely going to back the business community here.
Bravo.
And I'm going to back them because, in many ways, we are sitting here representing and often and mostly speak about the residential concerns of our constituents.
Yeah.
And so when I see a 44-38 split on public feedback, I'm quite surprised. You know, it's a bit like asking the turkey for an early Christmas. Why wouldn't the people say, heck yes, give me an extra break? So, against the backdrop of that, and Madam Chair, I will diverge just a little bit. Over this next 4 or 5 days, we're going to get the opportunity to put our best foot forward and to promote New Zealand business and our economic development to the world, and particularly to Guangzhou and Los Angeles. It will be a massive summit with 735 businesses registered for it. It has got huge, and I want to encourage you all to be there and support. But that shows that as a council, as a mayor, as a council, as a body, we are genuinely focused on building an economy that provides jobs for our people. And at this time, dovetailing back, I think that the need for us to maintain the status quo in this issue and to continue to provide and support the original formula is, against the backdrop of a desire steady as she goes budget, the preeminent value here. And so I want to encourage you to back the interim nature of this, and if we are going to make any further changes in terms of funding transport, and look, you might decide in the next LTP to have a further levy, that the broader issue of how that levy should apply would be best dealt with at that time. But to continue to pilot this matter through and have a minimal change budget this year and support generally the business community and their feedback would be something that I would think is not something that this council chamber has done overly as much as perhaps it should have, and this is an opportunity to support. Thirdly, the rural rates and large farms. I want to acknowledge Councillor Bill for his initiative here, but it is pretty clear.
Point of order, Madam Chair. Councillor Cashmore has declared a conflict of interest with regard to that item, so he can't be congratulated for anything.
That's about the most interesting point of order I've ever heard, Madam Chair.
A point of order.
Councillor Casey.
It is a point of order.
Councillor Casey, We've got a very big day ahead. Could we keep a little bit of humour?
You can't declare a point of order and then be congratulated for championing something, which you've got a point of, you've got a conflict of interest on.
We might congratulate you on some of the stuff you do, but
Yeah, I do.
Well, some of us do.
Yeah.
Carry on, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in terms of the large farms, good idea, but it's pretty evident that the support is overwhelmingly not there, and it would be a very significant struggle for us to want to try and proceed with it. So I can't support that one. What I do support, and what I think is important, and look, the level of public support for this was not high, but the remission on Māori freehold land is, in my view, one that we have to support. They, of course, are rated in a situation where there is a presumption of development, and it's clearly not going to happen. And so, councillors, I urge you to reflect on how iwi are holding their land and what they're holding it for. If any of you were present at any of the feedback gatherings and listened to local iwi and tangata whenua on this issue, you'll understand that our policy is not working for them, is a significant impost, and actually does not reflect the underlying zoning. So can we please take a pragmatic stance here and recognise the challenges within our system are not reflecting the reasonable aspirations of the local iwi and tangata whenua in terms of Māori freehold land. Lastly, just to go on and deal with some broader issues, we have a significant equity fund, $330 million. It's been sitting there and inherited by us from the former councils, and it has been subject to discussions through our work of leveraging our equity and commercial assets. My view is that it is time for us to address the issue of the utilisation of those funds. Our returns are quite weak at this point in time, and it'll be 6 one, half dozen the other in terms of the return as against borrowings to build capital. So in terms of the balance sheet, you've heard our officers' views on this. I would encourage us to start utilising, and I'm proposing $100 million per annum over the next 3 to 4 years, that we start utilising those funds to either pay down debt and or to carry out our capital works program rather than borrowing. Going back to the debt issue I raised at the start of this proposal, that will be assisted somewhat in us utilising these assets, and I see them not as our core strategic assets, but as assets that should be utilised just the same as our commercial or property holdings. They're no more nor less. And you've heard my view on 135 Albert. Once we have concluded the remediation of that building, it's my view that it should go on the market, and I would see it in exactly the same vein as I see these funds that are there for the utilisation of our balance sheet. To Gold Card, I want to support the continuation of the work that we're doing for our senior citizens. It is a real regret that the government don't see the specific case that Auckland has with regard to Gold Card owners. This is a part of our continuing discussion for AT and its board and for this council. There are 2 ways that we can address the challenges that we have in a rating system unless we do some other things around a local city tax, and that is, first of all, around the rates rebate for senior cits, and secondly, around the Gold Card. For me, those are the 2 things that give our elderly some mitigation of the cost of rates in our city. And they are 2 excellent programs, and so until such time as we're able to work a better way forward and try and argue this issue through, and I'll certainly use the ATAP opportunities for us with government, my view is that we should, as I have proposed in the recommendation, suck this up. for the benefit of our elder community. Councillors, so I want now to move on to one or two of the issues that came up from our local boards. I've got proposed recommendations up there to try and deal with these issues. First of all, the issue of cemeteries. This issue was raised by the Waitemata local board. I recognise that there needs to be broader work done here. It's not as straightforward as just setting up a fund for the Hobson Karangahape cemetery. There are a number of cemeteries that potentially would come within a similar request. So I'm asking that there be a report brought back to the Finance and Performance Committee and the Operation Local Board CapEx Fund. That it come back to the Regional Strategy and Policy Committee and options for managing damaged headstones in closed and open cemeteries, particularly those of historic value, and then in the meantime a budget of $50,000 be provided for in the 16-17 for immediate maintenance issues. Right, so something to help us deal with the immediate problem, not a lot, and then we'll move from there. The Community Facilities Partnership Fund, this is an issue that has been raised significantly across a number, and particularly the old Isthmus council representatives. And again there, because I think, one, the response from the team has been a little bit slow in this front in terms of the full report that we wanted to get back in this. So I'm asking that a report be brought back with urgency to the Finance and Performance Committee and the operation of the Local Board CapEx Fund, and the concerns that have been raised by the local boards in relation to barriers to using this fund be dealt with in a similar way to the previous Community Facility Partnership Fund, so that they can inform the next annual plan. So, of course, this fund that we presently have wrapped the existing Community Facility Partnerships Fund within it. It wasn't lost, it actually went into that fund, but it's not been utilised in a way that we had originally anticipated. The matter of Puki Tāpapa and the Monte Cecilia Park in Liston Village. A bit difficult to address these through the annual plan. It's probably going to be an issue that we need to work through over the next 3 to 6 months. Again, we need a further report to come back to the Finance and Performance Committee to explore the opportunity, one, to set up a trust structure to secure funding for and oversee the restoration of the Whare building at Monte Cecilia Park, and I think this is probably the better way to go forward, and certainly is the view that we're getting from our local community. And secondly, that we reallocate $300,000 to the Whare from the budget for a functions facility at the Pa Homestead site. And secondly, the Puki Tāpapa local board's planning options for Liston Village be presented to the Auckland Development Committee for further consideration. So a bit difficult to do it all through an annual plan round. There's quite a bit of work to be done in here, and we need the wise heads and the community heads around the table to really achieve the right sort of outcomes there. So listen to Puki Tāpapa, know that it's been a long and challenging issue all around Pa Homestead, that park, that village. And so we'll do our best to give it the right sort of direction for future decision making. Coastal erosion has been a challenge, and so I want to suggest, and we heard it from our briefing the other day, there are funds within the budget, and officers gave commitments that the most challenging projects be dealt with under the existing funding arrangements. But we know that we're looking for, and I've talked to the Chief Executive Officer on this matter, an urgent report setting out clearer rules, as was requested some months ago, but which we need to get some final advice on. The board's view on this is that they would appreciate these rules. Everyone, including Franklin, who have thrown the kitchen sink at it, has their pet projects, but we need to get some clarity around how we can make some judgment calls around that.